I'm JJ Dillon. I'm the founder of P2P.
I'm Brian Briggs. I have been DMing for about 10 plus years. It was a really good experience being able to get into the charities again. I've done some things in the past, but it's been really nice getting in and watching and do that.
Hey there, my name is Jordan Van Hardingsfeld. I am the founder of Alleycon. I was the general manager at Alleycon 2013, Alleycon 2014, and will be the general manager at Alleycon 2015. I was a DM during International Tabletop Day 2015's P2P RPG event. Really looking forward to what P2P RPG has planned for the upcoming Alleycon 2015. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you later.
So I actually ran two rooms. Sort of the metagame aspect of what we did is we had basically 3 phases and then a final great big dragon fight. So we had like a puzzle, combat puzzle, or combat puzzle, or just puzzle and combat within 3 phases there, however we wanted to break those up. And then the great big dragon fight at the end. I chose to do combat puzzle. And so my combat phase was twofold. I had my players fight a very powerful mage who had a bunch of shield guardians guarding the mage. And so the shield guardians, I just ended up using sort of like great big tall Lego men because they kind of have like a robotic look to them anyway. And so I used those for shield guardians and then a mage. And the characters would have made pretty quick work of them, but it didn't quite go that way because we had some unexperienced players, and so we had to work around that. It took a little bit longer than we wanted it to. But that was okay, because they did end up winning. And there were some hijinks in there. I had a gnome who had a broom of flying, who tried to fly the broom up one of the robot's butts, and so that allowed that was a good time. They did end up, from that room they actually got one of the constructs to fight for them, so, you know, good job for them. The next room sort of like emanated directly from that. Like I kind of ran it like every phase. The players would phase out and phase in somewhere else. And so the next room after that, what they had to do is they fought a fire giant, a bunch of fire elementals and stuff like that. I wanted to put fire in there to foreshadow for the final tile, which is a dragon tile. And so they beat the great big fire elemental, the fire giant, the fire, the hellhounds that the fire giant had. And then the third room was the puzzle room. So we had combat puzzle. And the puzzle, what I did is I took apart all the constructs that were the shield guardians and I put all their pieces out on my dungeon tiles, and I had one great big pedestal in the middle of the tile, and the fire giant from the previous room was standing on that pedestal. And I took the time to carve in Draconic into the styrofoam base the pedestal piece had a styrofoam base. I carved into the styrofoam in Draconic only the worthy. And so the fire giant was standing on the pedestal that said only the worthy, and then through a series of intelligence, perception checks, arcana checks and things like that, the players were able to discern that they had to figure out which of these pieces they could put together to make the strongest construct to get up on the pedestal and kind of have like a sumo wrestling fight with the fire giant. And so once they made those checks, they got the strongest one up there, and then after that, the construct, the shield guardian, was sort of psychically linked to all the players, and so my rogue controlled the legs, I had the paladin control the shield, I had the fighter control the sword, the construct had horns because it's awesome, and so I had the cleric control the head to do some awesome headbutting, and then I had the gnome control like constitution checks and saving throws and things like that, and then I just, you know, whenever the construct would attack, that way all the characters could roll at the same time and feel really, really involved. And so they'd all roll their d20, and I'd let them add the proper attributes so that the construct, you know, would fight back, the fire giant would fight back. And so it kind of became this game of push and shove until they eventually beat the fire giant. After that was the final room, in which I ran an ancient red dragon Lich. So I had a really cool looking undead dragon out there, and I made the most use of the terrain, I feel, because I skewered players on the stalagmites, I threw them into the pools of lava with the dragon, However, some of my players had flying, and so it was a lot of fun to see how they utilize that. At one point, the dragon was flying up, and I had a player up here, and he decided to fly toward the dragon, so they did kind of like a Dragon Ball Z, like, thing, and it was pretty great. The dragon would have completely killed him, but due to the nature of PvP RPG, where the players can buy for paying for rerolls, they were able to reroll a lot of their, failed Constitution saving throws or things like that. And so they ended up killing the dragon. It took a long time. The dragon killed many of them several times, and they had to buy reses. But it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and they killed the dragon in a very, very cool way. The fighter crit his last roll, and so he kind of snuck up on the dragon, or sneak up and got a chance to like vault up on the back of the dragon and stick a sword right between the scales of the back of the dragon's head and the brain. So good on him. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
My group represented the green. I actually had 4 rooms. The first room was a puzzle room where there were 3 switches, and in the other room there was a orb. One of the switches would light the orb. They had to figure out which switch lit the orb. They were only allowed to open the door once. The solution of the puzzle was they were supposed to hold one down and it would heat up the orb, put it back up, pull another one down, and if they went into the room and it was lit, then they knew that the one that was currently down was the correct one. If it was off and hot, then it was the first one, and if it was off and not hot, then it was the third switch. They just kind of flipped a bunch of switches a couple times so they couldn't really tell, and brought the orb, dropped it on one of them, and it was the wrong one, and released a mummy lord with a few mummies. The second room was going to be the third room, but I wanted to make sure I got it done, was the laser puzzle, where the players I had several mirrors set up, and depending on their checks, they would have to either do some math puzzles or they were given the numbers. Their checks were remarkably low, so they had to do some math. Forgot some of their math from 5th grade and almost released the purple worm that was encased in the center of the room. However, they re-examined the puzzle, found that they were missing something, and were able to release the spell without releasing the worm. And in the third room, they came down a long tunnel with this nasty sewer stuff, and they cleaned house in that room. There was no problems. The sorceress launched a delayed blast fireball, let it sit there for 10 rounds, and it just blew everything up. And there was a death knight in that room. They took him out pretty quickly, and in the end, they were pulled into the plane of air, of storm and such. And there was a cliff face. JJ did an excellent job with that tile. There were rubble floating in the air. All the characters except one had winged boots, so they could move around freely in this space. Unfortunately, they lost the fighter fairly early, and that hurt them pretty significantly. They did not have time before the game ended to complete it, so they were ripped back to the normal space in time to see the brick wall come.
So at the Table of Chaos, I had 3 different rooms. I ran 3 different rooms with the party that I had. And the first room was a room, basically it was the Underdark. In the Underdark, the Party of Chaos, 5 members, they fought against a group of drow. They felt it, and a lot of little minions as well. There was even a Quasit in there, a demon, and it really turned out well. They fought against a drow mage who was leading up the entire charge, a couple of elite drow warriors, and then you also had a bunch of just like drow minions who had all transformed into their spider forms. The second room was a puzzle, and in the puzzle room there were a few spore burst fungus. They were kind of dropping down poison onto the party, and what the party had to do is they essentially solved the puzzle by breaking away loose rubble at the base of one of the walls. The rogue character had to climb through the hole, go into the round, and figure out from a old Dwergar poem which order to remove the different switches and levers that were in there. And in the last room, they had been transported to a ice lair. And in the ice lair, there was an ancient white dragon. The ancient white dragon used the terrain to his advantage. He used a lot of frost breath attacks. He used his wings to push them back. He did kill, actually, the rogue character. The rogue character made a very foolish decision to climb up on top of a iceberg, and the dragon just chomped. They did end up, in the end, defeating the frost dragon, and when the frost dragon died, the glamour, the room that they were in, bent back to being a normal chamber, and they stood facing a giant brick wall.
So, okay, you guys had your planes here. So what your character saw was like different, like elemental planes. Like we had a fire plane, an ice plane, and a lightning plane. As your characters look around, you see all these different elemental planes. Like there's water, there's like, you know, whatever, there's wind, whatever element you can think of. And you think there should be dragons guarding all these planes. But there's only the 3 dragons left. And you don't quite understand why. And now it's going to become a little more clear why there's only 3 dragons left. And after you kill, so once you guys kill them, there's only 1 dragon left. Okay, here's what's about to happen. Okay. Alright, 1, 2, 3, go. And so this cube was like in the middle of, you know, all these planes of elemental chaos. And now, it's just been released. So unbeknownst to you guys, you have aided the release of Apollyon, the Destroyer. And so now the Destroyer is out, and the first thing it does is it just like and pounces on this dragon right here. And you're all like heroic and fighting, you know? And then you see what it does, and you're just like, ha, ha! Because it's just like, you know, pulling it apart. And then after that, you know, it like flings the cart into the side, and then it looks at the heroes that are left, and it says, truly, you were up to the task. Unbeknownst to you, you have aided in the destruction of all. And then after that, it just flies off, and you have no idea where it is. And you will have to find out at Alleycon 2015. We will wrap this up.